What's going on, everyone? Today we are going to jump into Indiana Jones with the 5060 Ti 16GB. We're going to be going through all the settings, especially checking out that VRAM usage and see if some of these recent updates have helped that out a little bit. Of course, we're going to be pairing it with the AMD 9800X3D with 32GB of VRAM. Of course, like normal, I'm not overclocking anything and everything is set to straight out of the box settings. If you like this kind of content, just ask you to please click that little button down there for me and subscribe. And with that, let's jump into the video. All right, welcome everyone. This low settings starting off right here on Indiana Jones with the 5060 Ti, the 16GB version. And right now we are at the very lowest possible settings with the very lowest possible ray tracing. You can't turn ray tracing off in this title, so we're just going to start right here at the very bottom of the barrel settings and with no upscaling. So we're right here at 122 FPS, and just keep an eye on that VRAM allocation. It is at 8.4. So if you are on or considering the 8 gig version of this card, I would highly suggest that you get the 16GB version, because right here we are already blowing past 8 gigs of VRAM on this title. Could be the title, could be the card, but just worth calling out. All right, so let's just jump to the very next level. Again, this is no upscaling, so this is going to be quite challenging for it to run at 1440, but we're just going to go through all these settings layer by layer, like I always mention, and see what we can do. Now, I'm going to probably restart quite a bit, so if you see cuts between these, that's just all that is. So I'm going to restart, jump back in. All right, welcome everyone. We are on the medium preset, so we're just going to start here with this and try to get a good idea of where we stand. So just take a look at that VRAM. We are already at 8.9 gigs of allocation with a used of 7.5. So if you are considering the 8 gig version of this card, just calling that out, that you might want to reconsider and get this 16 gig version. It's identical, other than you just get more VRAM, which is clearly something that we're going to need in this title. Right here at the lowest, well, not the quite lowest, but the medium preset, which is quite low, we are at 1440p. And if you scroll down here, we are on that medium graphics quality preset, and we have the lowest possible ray tracing set up here, and we're not doing any upscaling whatsoever. All right, so let's just go up to that next level of that preset. So get out of this medium and see kind of what it would take without any sort of upscaling. And once we get to the point where it's obvious we're going to have to upscale, I'll kick on that upscaling and we'll just keep going with the test. All right, so I'm going to do this. The game does require me to restart. I'm going to do that and then jump back in. All right, so here we are on the high preset. Again, check that VRAM out. We are killing through 8.8. I mean, we are just blowing right through our VRAM. Every time I go up, it uses a lot more. So we are on the 16 gig version of this card, so just want to call that out. Don't get the 8 gig. Definitely just get the 16 gig. You'll be way better off. All right, so this is the high preset. Again, we're not doing any upscaling at all, and we're at a respectable 76 FPS right here. So, you know, as we go up, I'm just going to see where the card kind of needs some of that help from DLSS or maybe frame generation later on, and see where we can push this game on this particular hardware. Again, I am on the AMD 9800X3D chip in conjunction with this GPU, so just take that in consideration as well. All right, so let's just go through it again. As we can see, we are using up quite a bit of VRAM, and our FPS is hovering right there around 82 FPS. We're not doing any sort of ray tracing other than the only ray tracing you can't get rid of. This game does require you to have ray tracing turned on to some degree, which is called path tracing, you know, the full ray tracing, I guess. It's very confusing how they worded all this stuff, but let's just go up to that next level of preset at least. So we're going to go up to Ultra. This game has quite a few different crazy settings, but Ultra isn't the max. You got also very Ultra and Supreme. So we're going to go to Ultra, and I'm going to restart and jump back in and see where we're at after I apply these settings. All right, here we are again with the Ultra preset. Again, this is just standard ray tracing. That's kind of how this game has to run. And as you can see, our VRAM allocation is 10.8 now, using 9.3. 75 FPS though, still pretty respectable. You know, we're seeing some really good frames on this card at 1440. However, you know, the main thing is that we just need to keep an eye on that VRAM. and make sure that whenever the thing starts to fall apart, which there will be a point where it will, we will turn on some of that DLSS and try to keep it going. But right here, on Ultra, it's very respectable. I mean, 80 FPS. You are doing some ray tracing because you can't turn that off again. No path tracing. That's remained. I haven't touched that at all. So let's just go up to the very next preset and keep going here with this. I'm going to probably leave this area once I do this, jump into this next kind of set of tests, just to give you guys again something else to look at. But yeah, we're going to go to very ultra, then we'll go to supreme. I'm going to do the restart, and then we'll be right back into it. All right, so this is very ultra, whatever that means, and there goes our VRAM going up a little bit. We're just shy of 12. We're at 11.2, and we're using almost 10 right now. We're still at that 72 FPS though, so the frames seem to be pretty consistent across the board with these settings. However, you are using more VRAM, and it tends to use more of that VRAM to just add more vegetation effects, more lighting effects that aren't path tracing. So you're seeing that VRAM go up, but it is holding steady on our actual performance, which is good to see. I'm going to go through this cutscene. I will cut it out that way it can keep going, but I'm going to run up here and start this process here of getting to this next little area. All right, so we just skipped that little scene there. All right, so we are at 65 down here. I just kind of wanted to get down here because it is a little bit tougher to run than that intro section. But got some water effects. It's just kind of nice to see it staying above 60 here, which is a positive sign that we might be able to get a really good experience out of this and just push it as far as we can possibly go. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, a subscription would be surely appreciated. I work really hard on these videos, and every subscription just keeps me going. So if you could do that for me, that would be amazing. We're just going to jump over here and go on to the next preset, which would be Supreme. Then we're going to start playing with some DLSS and see how far we can push it before we introduce some path tracing. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to come down here, click that over, do a nice restart, and then as you can see, everything is completely maxed out. So this will be everything maxed out with no sort of upscaling at all still. So we're going to jump into it, keep going, and press forward into the very much unknown with this card, because I've never done this at 1440. So I'll be right back. All right, so here we are again at the absolute highest preset on this title, Supreme. Everything is completely maxed out here. So looking really good though. We don't have any path tracing turned on, and we're not using any sort of upscale here at 1440. So I'm interested to see kind of how far we can go with upscaling and path tracing, because right here we are at a nice showing. I mean, this is 75 FPS here, and we're looking pretty good as far as VRAM allocation goes. Now this again is before path tracing, but I'm just going to keep going through here and implement some DLSS and see what we can do to get this Supreme setting to run as high as we can at a good visual fidelity before we start to introduce path tracing. I just feel like we're going to need that insurance as far as performance goes before we kick on some of that really hard to process lighting. I'm going to jump through this little cut scene here. I don't want to give you guys any story elements. Okay, skip that. Let's go. All right, so we're at 72, 65, 64. Looking really good though. I mean, we're down here, in got some fog effects and some water. It's a little bit tougher to run down here than it is at the beginning. That's why I like to kind of come over to this section. But yeah, we're looking really good. 71 FPS here. Now, when I turn on this DLSS, I'm just going to come over here and kick that on. So when I turn on that DLSS, we're going to switch from the from that TAA model to DLSS. We don't want to mess with auto because, of course, we're trying to do a more controlled test here, but this is just going to be a quality upscale. And we're going to jump from 70s to 94. So that's a pretty nice little uptick in our performance there. So as we go through it, though, I feel like we're going to probably have to go down a little bit more and use some more aggressive DLSS. The good thing is, though, it probably will still look pretty good. Any kind of environment like this that's just like heavily textured tends to kind of hide any sort of imperfections, in my opinion, with some of that DLSS, although DLSS 4 is extremely good. I don't mean to turn on my caps lock. is extremely good. So, you know, we can go harder on DLSS than quality, certainly. We're down in the 60s. That's just because that's a cutscene. That's not part of the game. I need to crack my whip. All right, so did that. Let's just go ahead and skip this. All right, so let's just keep on going. I don't, again, want to get into any sort of story elements. Let's just stick around this area. All right, so 84 FPS here. Again, we don't have any path tracing turned on, so let's see what path tracing does at the first little setting here. So this is only sunlight. As you can see, it immediately dropped us down to 53 FPS here. This is quite intensive. So we're at 50 FPS, sometimes 40. This isn't bad. This isn't like some game that you need like the most, the highest performance out of. It's a slower paced title, but it would be nice to stick around 60 if we can do that. Now, of course, we haven't turned on any frame generation. This game does support all the way up to 4X. So you could come in here and do like a 4X frame generation from this point. However, I say that with a big star next to it. Our VRAM allocation is really high. I mean, 14.5. I'm not sure if going to frame generation would necessarily be a good idea, because we would use just absolutely the last bit of VRAM that we have available to us. We got about 3 gigs on hand, and that's going to cause us to really stretch our resources as much as as much as this card could probably take. So I would probably come in here and go down to that next level of DLSS. Let's just come in here and go to nope, not that. Go back. Go back. We need DLSS. All right, so we're going to go to balanced and see what that does for us. Again, this is just balanced. That same ray tracing, path tracing of sunlight only is currently set, and that gives us 55 FPS and a small, tiny break on our VRAM usage. Anytime you implement DLSS, it lowers that background resolution, so you get a small break on your VRAM. So I'm really thinking we're going to have to go to performance here, as kind of that baseline if we want to start doing any sort of a more aggressive path tracing. So we're going to go to performance. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Now that gives us 54 FPS. Now you could come in here and frame gen from this. That would probably be a pretty good experience. That VRAM got a smaller break. Still little increments do add up, but we're right under 13 gigs on our used VRAM. So you could come in here and do some frame generation. I do want to see what it does whenever we go to that next level of ray tracing or path tracing without any sort of frame generation. So I'm going to go up a little bit harder on the path tracing. So this brings us to 45 FPS, 48 FPS, 50 FPS, and this is totally playable. I'm not gonna lie. This is totally playable. 50 FPS on a game like this is a nice experience, especially when you throw in some frame generation. You can have a really good, well-rounded experience without breaking the bank on something like a 5080. To do all this without frame generation is probably what it would take. But let's just go to that very next level, go all the way up on our path tracing. All right, so if I go up on my sunlight, so from only sunlight, it will require me to turn on some additional ray tracing features, which will be pretty intensive. So we're going to leave that off for the very last section of this. So full ray tracing, everything's completely maxed out up here, and we do have that performance DLSS enabled. Let's see what that does for us here. That gives us 40 FPS. Now, your VRAM might be able to do some frame generation. We're going to test that out next. So 41 FPS, you can frame generate from here on a game like this. This isn't something that you need to have like the best reflexes ever with. This isn't the finals or any kind of like first person shooter, but we are in the high 30s. So just kind of we're getting a little to the point where I wouldn't really want to completely max everything out just all the way like this. However, for the sake of the test, let's come in here and just turn on this ray reconstruction. It's going to require me to do that. Yes, I'm going to enable that. All right, so that's done its thing, and we're going to go ahead and turn on all lights. So what we're looking at here is the highest preset we could possibly run, the highest level of path tracing we could possibly run, and performance DLSS with no frame generation. So let's just see what this can do for us here. Okay, so visually, not that different, to be honest. I mean, I'm not sure if it's quite worth going like this hard on it. Definitely diminishing returns, but we are high 30s, low 40s, and our VRAM usage is holding up okay. We're at 13 gigs. So if I come in here and just kind of lean on that frame generation to get me a little bit better experience, I'm interested to see what the frame generation can put out with the VRAM that we have left over, because VRAM is directly tied to what your frame generation can do. So I'm just going to turn on 2x right now just to see what that does as far as VRAM usage goes. So hopefully we won't crash, but yeah, we did okay. We did okay. So that VRAM went up about half a gig, but it gave us 67 FPS here. So again, at 1440 with everything completely maxed out, ray tracing, every single thing is to the absolute top with 2x frame gen, you are looking at 70 FPS on this title at 1440, which I think is quite cool. And to be honest, once you do implement that frame generation, the next level, 2x, 3x, 4x, all the way up, typically doesn't use that much more VRAM. All right, so I'm going to test my theory here. So right now we're looking at 13.4 gigs of used VRAM, and looks like 13.4 is right where it stayed at 4x, but let's jump into the game here. All right, so yeah, 13.4. So we're at 122 FPS. So really, once you turn on 2x, you might as well just turn on 4x in this title. As you see, it doesn't really use any additional VRAM from 2x to jump to 4x, and it's just going to make a more smooth experience. But right here at 116 FPS with everything completely maxed out at 1440, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good experience in my point of view for a card at this level. The 4x frame gen on top of performance DLSS really does look great. Now, I really want to check out one more thing before I kind of go through my recommended how I would play it section that I normally do. I want to come in here and check out what the ultra performance will do and turn off the frame generation, just so we can see what it looks like with everything maxed out, and kind of compare it to what it would do on that performance setting. Now, I will say that to go from performance to ultra performance, you're upscaling from like really low. I'm not even sure what it is. It's like 240p or something, just in 360p, something very, very small. I'll put the number right here. I'm going to research it because I don't really know and I don't want to mislead anyone. But yeah, this is what you're upscaling from. So you are upscaling from a very, very small amount of information. And it still looks good. It is pretty soft. I mean, you're definitely giving up some of that sharpness to go from performance to ultra performance. You know, is it worth the additional 10 or so FPS, especially once you have frame generation? I don't think so. I would rather just go back up to performance and turn on some frame gen, simply because I think it just looks like crap at ultra performance. And that's coming from someone who generally thinks that performance looks okay in most games. But let's see, let's go up to quality and check out what we're at now. So in quality DLSS, let's just get it back into our brain what we were at. 27 FPS here. So that's 30 FPS basically. All right, so that is a console level experience. At least a lot of consoles will target this. Now if you come in here and go to quality DLSS with some frame gen turned on, I'm just going to tell you it might not feel perfect, but it's definitely going to smooth it out quite a bit if we've got the VRAM to do it. Let's go to return to the game here. So we're using all of our VRAM to do this, and it's still quite unnatural feeling. It just doesn't feel that great. I can absolutely tell it's just not, it's not really 94 FPS. I mean, it's saying it is, but I think it's hitting some VRAM limitations on top of the fact that a base frame rate of 27 FPS just is not that good for frame generation. It just can't do a lot with it. It still feels pretty choppy rather. So what I would probably recommend doing is going over performance, using that 4X if you want to run everything completely maxed out like we're doing here. Now, what I will say is I probably wouldn't play it exactly this hard. I mean, you heard me a minute ago say that the ray tracing really didn't add like a whole lot to the title, to the experience, I guess. And there might be some places in the game that really, use it a lot. But as far as me visually, the only thing that I noticed was this water has depth to it, other than looking kind of flat. But here's how I would probably play it. I just want to run through it real quick. So I would I would leave everything on high because really the difference between all these presets wasn't that much. It just didn't really do too much. But I would probably just turn down this ray tracing. I'm going to see what it looks like here with that frame gen turned off, with the medium level of ray tracing and everything else maxed out. That should give us around 60. Not quite. Okay, so it looks like 48. All right, so 52 in some cases. So in this particular area, it looks like high 40s, mid 50s or so. And I think personally, if you really want to go that 60, you might want to just turn your path tracing completely off. If you want to come down here, and let's be honest, ray tracing is already hard enough on 1440 with this kind of thing. But if you look at the difference between off here, see how flat that water is? That just looks like complete crap. But if you come in here and all you do is turn on the very first level of ray tracing, I'm trying to sell you a little bit on this setting. Go to that medium, just medium, that's it. Look how much freaking better this water looks. I mean, you've got depth, you can see the bottom of it in some places. Like, it actually makes it look tremendously better. So is it worth not going quite to, 60? Probably, in my opinion. The visual uptick is worth it to me. Again, all this stuff is personal, so don't do exactly what I say. I'm just trying to give you much information as I can here. All right, but the next thing I would probably do is just turn on that frame generation, go straight up to 4X, and just do this. I mean, this feels nice and smooth. I could play it all day like this. This is not a big deal at all. You've got 153 FPS here. 170 something FPS. Your water looks better. All your different, just that simple level of going from ray tracing to that first level of path tracing, it just makes a world of difference. I think it's worth it personally. And performance DLSS still looks really good enough. I think it's perfectly fine on this card, because you're not going out and buying this card because you want to run every single game at 4K max settings. You're buying this card likely because you're on a little bit of a budget and you want to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. I think that this card with the 4X, with the improvements to DLSS, is not a bad buy right now, especially with these prices coming down. Some of these games some of these cards are even coming with free games. I don't think the 5060 Ti is one of them, but they're really showing that they've got some of these cards to sell. I feel like we're out of that, like, every card being crazy price-wise. You can get some of these entry-level cards for a pretty good price. This is the WindForce model, so this is probably this is kind of like the entry-level card from Gigabyte. So just take all that into consideration. Again, if you like my content, a subscription is the best way that you can possibly support me. I think this is actually my 100th video, so thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed, shared their thoughts, left comments. I really love the community we're building here. If you want to be part of it, just sub, hit the bell. You'll get all the different polls I put out on what kind of GPUs you want to see or what kind of games you want to see me test. And yeah, we're just going to keep going. 100th video. So thank you again, and we will see you in the very next one. Peace.